Hey Kev, let's follow this trail over here. This looks like there might be something waiting down there.
All right. Hey, wait a minute. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I thought it was just me. What the heck is that?
I don't know what that is. Whoa, do you smell that too?
That's unbelievable. Hey, look.
What the?
Hey, look, those branches are moving over there.
What the heck is that?
Holy cow, is that what I think it is? Look at that thing.
Oh my God.
It's a freaking Sasquatch. Welcome to the Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters podcast. I am your host, W.J. Sheehan. Hello, everybody, and once again, may I welcome you to our fine show. My name is W.J. Sheehan, author of the series of books, Bigfoot Terror in the Woods, Sightings and Encounters, 9 volumes available for your pleasure at Amazon in ebook, Kindle, and paperback format, and volumes 1 through 8, if you're an audio buff, at Audible, iTunes, and Amazon as well. So please partake of a couple of 2 or 3 of them. And may I introduce you to my brother and co-host, KJ Sheehan. Kev, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about you, Bill?
Doing good. I just told you that I don't know when people hear this podcast will be this weekend, right?
Coming up.
Our buddy Aaron Judge on the New York Yankees just hit number 57.
Nice, on his way to break Roger Maris's record.
Yeah. Hopefully he'll do that in a legitimate way as opposed to our steroidal buddies. That'll be nice, you know.
Yeah, no, he's doing a great job. And also, even when he's not hitting homers, he's been getting a lot of base hits lately.
Yeah, well, in a year where it seems like 2 1/4 is a high batting average, you know, he's hanging in there over 300, you know.
Exactly.
So he's doing a yeoman's share of the work for sure, you know.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Awesome work.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. So, by the way, I wanted to mention to our listeners, now, folks, you know what just happened with me and my wife passing, and kind of reorganizing life and duties and how and when things get done. And Kev's coming into a busy segment of the year here, so we'll probably be hard-pressed, Kev, don't you think so, to put together a podcast a week for the next...
Yeah, we're gonna do our best, but we just ask for a little bit of extra time from the listeners if we're not able to pull it off. But we'll do our best. But it's a crazy time of the year, and as Bill mentioned, he's figuring out what the new formula is, which is very reasonable.
Yeah, there's just a lot going on, and you know, at some point I got to put some time aside too to get Volume 9 in audiobook, and I don't know when I'm going to start attacking that, but that takes, you know, a good 4 nights in the studio.
But we're not quitting, right? We're just we're trying to get this thing done.
Yeah, no, I want people to know, because a lot of people call in, hey, what happened? No podcast, this and that. And folks, you know, we like doing this. But when the duties of life call, that's top priority, right?
Yeah, and we really haven't taken any time off either. You know, a lot of the big podcasts take a month off a year and stuff, and we haven't done that. So maybe we should, but we haven't.
So, bro, what do you got tonight? Now, cryptids in the news and other oddities segment.
Well, we're going to go to the skies, but before that, I am going to tell you that I was down this past weekend racing my sailboat on Lake Lanier in Georgia. And if you remember Lake Lanier, it's one of the most haunted lakes in the U.S. Because this is the one that the Army Corps of Engineers built over a town, and some contractor, not the Army Corps, but some subcontractor, was supposed to go and move all the bodies in these cemeteries. And the rumor is that they didn't move the bodies, and therefore the lake is more haunted than the typical lake.
Yeah, your typical lake is mildly haunted.
Exactly. This is severely haunted. It has, if you recall, we did an episode on the woman in the blue dress who comes wading out of the lake. So we were down there Friday night, which was kind of stormy, Saturday night, which was gloomy, Sunday morning, that was extra foggy and extra creepy. And we were looking for the lady in the blue dress, and thankfully, we did not see her.
Yeah. You didn't see any arms or heads bobbing around in the water, nothing like that.
And the water was really clear. It's like the clearest I've seen a lake in a long time. So that was extra creepy, by the way. Sometimes you don't want the lake to be that clear.
Yeah. Better I can't see.
Exactly.
You know, I wonder, it would be a nice survey. I don't know how you could pull it off, but I'd like to survey the bass tour fishermen and see what they have to say about unusual sightings, whether it be Bigfoot on the shoreline, the Blue Lady, you know. I wonder what kind of stories they've got to kick around, because they're out there a lot, man.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I was asking my fishing guides up in Alaska if they saw anything, have heard of anything. Not so much the lady in the blue dress, but Bigfoot, a hairy man.
Right.
And none of them bit on me asking them. So,
I wonder if they just were keeping it under their hat.
I mean, they're only hanging out with you for a day, right? And they're never going to see you again. So I don't think they feel a need to share everything with you.
Yeah, you're a stranger in a foreign land, you know.
So no sightings of the woman in the blue dress, thank God. But what we're going to talk about this week in Cryptids in the News and Other Oddities is a video clip on YouTube that's gotten a lot of hits from a couple of years ago, where someone saw a pterosaur flying over Boise, Idaho. So this is one of those winged dinosaur-looking creatures. You probably, I know you've seen the video, Bill.
Yeah.
A lot of folks out there listening have probably seen the video. So this thing, again, from a couple of years ago, it's a daytime video, clear as can be. Basically, someone's videotaping it, flying across the screen from right to left with some trees below it, kind of gray sky, again, crystal clear, and definitely not a bird. Definitely looks like a pterosaur, you know, complete with the beak-like head and like the hooks about halfway out each wing on the leading edge of the wings. And speaking of the wings, they are flapping away like a pterosaur's wings would flap.
Yeah, something with very large wingspan.
Yeah, definitely not a bird, not a big crane or anything like that.
Yeah, it's obvious what this thing is, vis-a-vis if it is legitimate. Now we have a friend at a podcast. I'll give a shout out to my buddy Jerry. Jerry, at one point in his life, was a pilot for a commercial airline and has friends in the industry. Jerry has said to me personally that he's had conversations with a number of pilots in the region of the Pacific Northwest, you know, including, you know, Alaska and parts south and east, that these people also say they've seen these things and, like, you know, nonchalantly, yeah, they're out there. We've seen them. So I don't know what that's all about. You know, I've never interviewed anybody personally, but I will throw back to Rick in Alberta, who told tale of finding that deer with no snow on it, laying in fresh fallen snow, with nothing having come into the scene or gone out of it, and strange, like claw-like footprints in the snow. And I wondered, geez.
Yeah.
what the heck could have... It had to come from the sky, either kill or have its fill of something that had freshly died, and then gone back into the sky.
Well, and that's part of that legend is what the Native Americans, especially out in the western U.S., call the Thunderbird.
Yeah.
Which are these giant winged creatures. No one knows if they're mythical, like a unicorn, or if they really exist.
Right.
And that's what the legend's about. But let's go back to this pterosaur. So let's talk about what a pterosaur is, which I didn't realize until I started looking into it. They're actually not dinosaurs. But, you and I, Bill, we grew up associating a pterosaur as a type of dinosaur.
Right,
A flying dinosaur. And they're also not birds, but it turns out they're a type of extinct flying reptile. Which is pretty cool, or believed to be extinct.
Right,
And what I did when I was looking at this video, I went out and I looked at a lot of folks that have analyzed it. And I'll give a shout out to Bill's channel, not my brother Bill's channel, but it's called Bill's channel on YouTube. And some of you out there may know Bill, but he had a video expert analyze the video. And in fact, this video expert recreated a version of it. So he believes that it is a fake. And what he did, it's pretty cool. He's got it on YouTube. He showed how to recreate it, where he basically filmed the sky and the trees, panning, right to left like you would. And then he went online and found a CGI pterosaur and had it flapping its wings and things like that, created that creature, and then overlaid it onto the pre-existing video. And so he didn't recreate the same video, but he showed how you could pretty easily create a version that looked very similar. Now, very importantly, he didn't prove that it was fake. He just proved that he could recreate something similar to that video.
So the fellow that examined... I guess what I'm trying to get at is I've seen professionals take apart UFO footage. They could see with a variety of different software packages kind of blemishes, overlays. They could find seams in whatever was completed. It's never completely brushed away. Right. Just like counterfeit money is never flawless.
Right.
But you really got to be good at it to find the flaws.
Yes.
And so did he really nail this thing apart?
He didn't.
Okay.
So he didn't do that kind of analysis. He looked at it. He said, man, this thing looks real. Like it had really sharp edges on it and stuff when you zoomed in.
Yeah.
But then he showed how... like you could basically take this modeling, three-dimensional modeling of this pterosaur with the wings flapping, create a surface on it, basically skin it with a colored surface, and then overlay it to the video that you previously shot. And it looked pretty darn similar when he did that.
Right, and all of this takes nothing away from... like Jerry's testimonial that men of good intent, pilots in the Pacific Northwest have reported and stood by their sightings of such things. So you're kind of in this area of like he said, she said.
Sure.
And yet we know that there's all kinds of CGI capability. I mean, just go to the movies, which I don't, but I see the clips. I mean, they could just make you think you're falling out of an airplane from 30,000 feet, sitting in the movie theater, and it sure as heck looks real to me,
Sure.
So
now, what's interesting, when I was looking into this, I came across a story that happened a long time ago. So this story and video was recorded a couple of years ago, and then I recalled that there was a sighting or a report of a pterosaur, or what they used to call a thunderbird, all the way back in the 1890s. And Bill, I don't know if you saw this one. In April 26, 1890, where there was a legend of a bunch of cowboys seeing one of these things flying around in Tombstone, Arizona.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you've seen that.
Yeah.
And there was a story about it in the newspaper, which was called the Tombstone Epitaph, again, back in the end of April, 1890. Mm-hmm. And that was 9 years after the shootout at the OK Corral in Tombstone. So
wow, and what exactly did you get any data from that? What did they say about that?
Well, there's a picture that you'll often see on the internet that's associated with this killing of a pterosaur, but it turns out that this picture has been proven to not be from the Tombstone Epitaph. Like if you're casually read about it, they'll say like this is the picture from the Tombstone Epitaph, but I actually found the article, the original print, online of the article in the Tombstone Epitaph, and apparently at that point in time they report that they didn't put any pictures in the newspaper, kind of like they didn't have the capability back then. So this picture's never been found, although, again, if you Google it, you'll see a bunch of cowboys standing up against a barn with this, what looks like a pterosaur in front of them, kind of stretched out, a dead pterosaur.
Yeah, yeah.
So, it's interesting. And, there's all different kinds of reports on it. One, that it really happened. This thing was flying around. It looked like it was sick. And then, like it would land, and these two cowboys saw it. And then it would take off and fly a short way, kind of like it was exhausted. And then finally they shot it. And it was indeed dead, and then they took pictures of it, but the pictures have never turned up, the real pictures. And then there's a whole thread related to this. Again, I'm not saying it's truth or something false, but that this was written up to promote kind of interest and tourism in Tombstone, because at this point in time, 9 years after the shootout in the OK Corral, there was no more gold being found and really not a lot going on in Tombstone. So, some folks speculate that this article was written in a newspaper just to generate interest in coming to Tombstone.
Yeah, generate some tourist business.
It's amazing that, if that's true, that happened all the way back in 1890, right?
Yeah, well, money is always the draw, right? How do we get more money into town, or do we just close the place up?
Sure.
So what
net, I'm a little disappointed because I saw the video. Of course, I thought, I don't know if there's dinosaurs still alive, but at the same time, the video looked pretty darn good.
Right. And remember, like you said, it's really not a dinosaur. It's a type of reptile.
Exactly. Flying reptile.
So we've got, large iguanas and all kinds of stuff,
Right.
The dragons and...
Komodo dragons.
Komodo dragons and all kinds of, who knows really what's out there. But what did they say about the picture with the cowboys? Did anybody investigate that as true or hoax?
Well, it's just that picture that you see on the internet is supposed to be the picture from that newspaper article, but that's not true.
Right. So that casts dispersion.
It casts dispersion on the picture.
Yeah, yeah. It's a shame because we have a lot of these types of things floating around the internet now, and the water is continually muddied with fact versus fiction,
Oh, so, like I've said before on this podcast, that's the most frustrating thing, I think, with Bigfoot, more than like UFOs and stuff like that, is that there are some hoaxers out there.
Yeah.
That are running around with big shoes on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yep.
Now, I think there's less and less of them running around because they're going to get shot by somebody with a gun who thinks like, hey, I'm going to bag me a Bigfoot. And instead they end up tragically accidentally shooting a human that's running around in a furry suit.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, man, unless that Bigfoot is standing still, some of the shots I've seen of Bigfoot running, You'd have to be a damn good trapper skeet shooter to take one of them down on the run because, man, those things can boogie.
Yeah, they're moving.
And fast.
Yeah. But hopefully the hoaxers out there have given up running around in furry suits. So,
yeah.
But again, it's interesting. I always fall back, as you know, Bill, to the old stories prior to the internet because there was nothing to really gain. But here in this case, we show that maybe there is something to gain, by this Tombstone newspaper in that they want to drum up some tourism. But that's the first time, I think, in all of the old articles that I've covered about all different cryptids where it was like clearly, potentially used to drum up tourism and business for the town.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to stay tuned. I'm going to keep looking and see what else comes up on this.
Yeah, and these types of things aren't new, right, Kev? Like these old road shows. You remember we did that one on, what was it, the Iceman?
Oh, yeah, that was super cool.
Yeah, and they were charging a lot of money to travel around with that exhibit.
Yeah, remember one of our listeners wrote in and said that they waited in line to see it in Sears Roebuck in Alabama. The Iceman.
Yeah, it's amazing, so... but listen, stay tuned, folks, because, if it's out there, Kev is plugging away to, within reason, dig up whatever data is available to just give a fair exegesis of, what's going on with any particular thing that is in our sites.
Yeah,
so
and I would say, in fairness, half of the stuff that I start to investigate is fake or proven to be fake, and I never report on it. But this was pretty interesting, and we had a lot of interest from our listeners in these videos of the pterosaurs. And when I looked at them, don't get me wrong, Bill, as you know, a lot of the videos I see, they're super fake. Like, I don't need an expert to tell me.
Yeah.
This was not, though. Like, I was like, this looks pretty cool.
Yeah. And so we're left with, it's inconclusive, this video anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
And by the way, again, folks, if you've got anything to add to this, or you've had any sightings, or you know something else that we don't know, BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com. Hit the contact button and chime in with us. We're here to listen.
100%.
And it's also true what Kevin says. He investigates a lot of stuff that he deems to be fake. And you don't ever hear about it from us. It's only the things that are of interest or remain in that gray area that you bring to the table, and I appreciate that, So, I've got something really cool here. That was really good, Kev. I've got a cool sighting here. This following encounter was told to me by a fellow named Terry Bennett, a resident of the good old state of Washington. And this is what Terry and his fly fishing partner saw while fishing the banks of the Elk River. It was in the latter part of the summer of 2005, not that long ago, folks, that my friend Larry and I had traveled up to the town of Elkford in British Columbia to take in a week of fly fishing on the Elk River. Now, this river flows through the Kootenay region of British Columbia, where we heard the Kootenay before. And
it was a hotbed of hairy man sightings.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it was on our second day that we had sighted what we knew to be a Sasquatch. So he comes right out of the gate. 2 days fly fishing, we saw what we knew was a Sasquatch. Let's go on. On that day, we had hiked into the scrub that flanked both sides of the river in this area. Our view in the morning consisted of the mountains as a backdrop, which were being bathed in the morning sunlight, and below them in our foreground were patches of small pines and this scrub I spoke of, all of which were blanketed by what I will call ground fog, which was gradually dissipating as we fished. The river itself faded away to our north, where it rounded a bend, all of which at the time was concealed by this thin layer of ground fog. Larry was about 30 or 40 yards to my north, mending his line over a ripple, while I had stopped to change my tippet. I was standing there taking in the magnificent spectacle of these glowing mountains when my eyes caught what appeared to be a man moving through the fog at about 100 yards or so to my north on the other side of the river. I must admit to you that when I first set eyes on him, I didn't think it was a man, even though I just said that I saw a man. This is how strange it is when you set eyes on one of these creatures. The mind doesn't want to accept what it is that you are looking at, and it just doesn't register in the moment. I don't know if that makes any sense to all of you at all, but I'm trying my best to describe to you how I felt both during the initial stages of this sighting and then afterward. I didn't say anything to Larry initially, and I must tell you that this layer of fog was moving, slowly wafting over the river and through the trees and scrub. What I had seen for a brief moment was now completely concealed by the mist, and so I stood there watching and waiting. At this point, I had completely stopped working on my line and began to slowly walk towards Larry, saying nothing and keeping my eyes fixed on the opposite bank. I was ever so slowly advancing towards Larry's position when I yet again saw a flash of reddish-brown fur in the midst, which was once again obscured as fast as I had seen it by the fog. At the time, of course, I had no idea I was really looking at a Sasquatch, for as of yet I hadn't seen it fully, but the color of its fur stood out like a sore thumb against the surrounding scrub and low-growth bushes, which were predominantly sandy-colored and gray. I was now standing at Larry's side, pointing across the bank, telling him what I was seeing. He said that there were more than likely berries in the bushes and that I was seeing a bear foraging. Of course, he hadn't as of yet seen what I did. And even though I hadn't seen it fully as of yet, if it was a bear, it was standing on its hind legs. Now the two of us were watching for about 5 minutes, and Larry, who wasn't half as interested as I was, began to fish again. He said to me, "Forget about the bear, man. We came here to fish. He's not going to bother us. He's across the river." But I just stood there and waited. Over the next 15 minutes or so, the mist was all but gone, and there was nothing in the distance to see except for the trees, bushes, and the mountain range. So I began again to retie my tippet. I had all but forgotten about it when Larry got a strike, and I picked up my head, turning to my right as I did so, and there on the other bank coming out of the trees was a huge Sasquatch walking in the sunlight through the scrub. I whistled to get Larry's attention, and when I did, Larry looked at me, and so did the Sasquatch that was a couple of 100 yards away. While still keeping my eyes on the creature, I pointed for Larry to look, and the Sasquatch didn't so much as miss a step, still walking through the scrub. This scrubby embankment was basically a mirror image of our side of the river, and for the most part, what was around or near to us was about 4 feet tall at its highest growth point. Using that as a base point for measuring, this Sasquatch to me seemed to be almost 5 feet taller than the tallest scrub it was walking through. It lumbered along, continuing to walk through the scrub, where it eventually ducked into the trees and was gone from sight. We stood there watching and waiting for the better part of an hour, hoping to see it again, but it never happened. When the creature was walking, it had turned to look in our direction numerous times, but didn't seem to be fazed at all by our being there, not moving any faster or any slower because of us. It walked at what seemed to be a very leisurely and robotic pace, which with each swing of its arms matched by the movement of a leg. Very machine-like to the eyes. Even at that distance, the thickness of its upper body was enormous. Its head seeming to be tucked into its shoulders and chest. And when it turned to look at us, the entire torso moved as one piece. At one point in the sunlight, it seemed as though the head was bald, and that there was long hair hanging from the sides and back, with the exposed top looking somewhat conical in shape. Perhaps it was eating berries when I first saw it. However, because of the mist, I wasn't able to see it doing so. I can now say, however, from experience, that nothing can prepare an individual for an encounter with one of these creatures. If it wasn't for the river separating us, I would not have hung around to watch for fear of my very life. In your mind's eye, picture a large bull moose standing on its hind legs. That is what I was looking at. So what do you think of that, Kev? Elk River fly fishermen, Sasquatch on the banks in the fog?
Pretty wild. Yet again, we got some fly fishermen that are out there all the time in the wild, and they see the hairy man. And of course, it's in British Columbia, right? Beautiful British Columbia, like the license plate says.
Yeah, and, again, people that are out there doing something, it's not like there's a crowd over there. These guys probably hiked into some desolate spot and they're in pristine conditions.
Yeah, very rural place for sure.
Yeah. So, what can you say? I like his description, too, when he said that if it wasn't for the river separating them, he wouldn't have been hanging around.
Exactly.
And then he gives that description out of his mind of a bull moose standing on its hind legs. I mean, I've seen horses rear up in front of me, and they're like, whoa, But a bull moose on its hind legs, he said, that's the type of mass that I was looking at.
I've seen bull moose in the wild, and I can't imagine one standing up on its hind legs.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about a monster.
Crazy.
So, I don't know. It's like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. These stories are in the ears of the listeners. And, if you believe them, there's something out there that people are encountering, and it's called Sasquatch, you know?
No doubt about it. I mean, I'm going out there, too, by the way, Bill, out to British Columbia in October.
Mm-hmm.
So watch out, Bigfoot. I'm looking for you. Well, actually, I'll watch out.
Yeah. It's probably a better idea. Yeah, It's funny, Kev, too. I'll just tell you something funny. I was talking to our buddy, the lobsterman, up in Maine the other day.
Oh, yeah, the one I was supposed to go and see, right?
Yeah, and I told him that, it's actually the second time we talked about it, but I told him how fantastic he thought that Bigfoot museum was out there.
Cryptid museum, yeah.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
And he was the guy that turned you on to it.
Yeah, absolutely. He gave me all the directions, told me, don't miss it, And, when you're on your way home from northern Maine, it's easy to say, like, I'm going to skip it. I got to get home. But I found the place, and that place was fantastic.
Yeah. I remember you telling me that you could get lost in there for the whole day.
Absolutely, yeah.
It wasn't like you were going into some little sideshow shack.
No. And I actually reported on a few cryptids that I only learned about in that museum. I had never heard of them before and read the stories, and I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. And our conversation started to turn into white sharks.
Oh.
And he's got them cruising around right off of his island over there.
Oh, yeah. There are a lot of seals up there, and the great whites like the little seals.
Yeah, and he also said he was watching one ripping into not a dolphin, I think he said a porpoise.
Okay.
And, I was like, whoa. Oh. And his brother does some diving around there for, like, moorings and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's terrifying. By the way, Did you ever see the video? I saw it recently because I guess apparently the great white shark population, used to be just exploding in South Africa, right off of Cape Town. And now there's less and less. Did you see that video from above, from a drone or whatever, of the orca whales attacking the great whites?
Yeah, well, they had that pair of whales they called port and starboard. And both of their dorsal fins, one laid down to the left, one laid down to the right. And I've never seen an orca that didn't have an erect dorsal fin. But this pair had come into their area, both of them having these kind of collapsed dorsal fins. They were working as a team and just like on a mission to eradicate the white sharks.
Yeah, but you saw that video where they like bite this huge great whites in the side and like kill them immediately.
Yeah, they go for the liver.
Exactly. They bite them right in the vital organs, and you see this big cloud of blood, and this huge shark is just limp.
Yeah, dead.
Yeah, with the orca having it in its mouth. Just crazy.
Yeah. Now, if you caught Shark Week this year, last month,
right?
The team has been watching that area, those people that live down there. And the white shark population was like severely depleted. They were wondering if they were even going to come back.
Right.
And there have been some sightings as of the making of Shark Week now, and they're just hoping and praying that port and starboard get lost,
They're trying to lure some more tourists down there to go swimming so that the sharks have something to eat.
Yeah. We're hoping the tourists come back.
Go swimming around 6 or 7 at night,
Well, so, brother, what do we have in our listener mail today?
Oh, we got some good stuff, Bill. Our first email that I'm going to cover comes in from our field correspondent, Rick in Ohio. We love Rick.
I love Rick.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he wrote in response to one of my articles or one of my podcast sections about vampires. And if you recall, I was talking about the vampires being buried with bricks in their mouth to keep them from coming back and biting anyone. And Rick came across this article in Poland of these vampires being buried with basically a sickle around their neck, kind of hammered into the ground to keep them from rising up from the dead.
Wow. I mean,
He's got some pretty cool imagery of a female vampire pinned to the ground with a sickle across her throat. Yeah, and Rick says, I think you covered something similar with a grave in Colorado, correct?
Yeah.
And I did. And in Colorado, though, it's a little more wild. And I actually went over to the cemetery outside of Denver where it's believed that someone hammered a wooden stake through a vampire's heart, and then the stake actually grew into a tree coming out of the center of this grave. Yeah, and I saw this grave, and there's indeed a tree coming out of the center of the grave.
Boy, oh boy.
Lovely.
Some of this stuff, really creepy stuff, man. Sickle driven in around the neck.
Yeah, but good stuff, Rick. Keep keep these stories coming. I hadn't seen that article, and the imagery is just like, oh my God,
Yeah, yeah.
So.
And definitely legit. I mean, that looks legit.
No, you could. They have photos of the archaeologists uncovering it carefully.
Yeah, yeah. Well, who knows what lies ahead?
Exactly.
Or behind us.
Exactly.
Wow, crazy stuff.
Yeah, and our next letter comes in from Greg, and Greg writes, "Hello, gentlemen. You're both probably turning your heads looking around like the Three Stooges." Who, us? And Greg says, "I'd like to ask a non-Bigfoot question. Not to upset any listeners, just curious what some of your favorite music bands and performers are. Can't go wrong with Bigfoot and a little bit of rock and roll."
Wow.
And he says, "Of course, I'd like to send my condolences to you, WJ. My heart goes out to you, my brother. May God be with you, WJ, KJ, your family's friends, and all the listeners." Greg.
Wow. Thanks a lot, Greg. Muchas gracias, senor.
Yeah.
And so what do you say about that favorite
I'm a big Led Zeppelin fan. I wish I was around to go see them live. I just, I got their whole library now digitally, and it just blows me away. Even the stuff from Led Zeppelin 1 from 1969, when they dropped the needle on that album, back in the day, and you're like, man, that album could be released today, and it would be a hit, so...
Well, when you talk of Led Zeppelin, what are like some of your favorite songs that they ever did?
Oh, I mean, I like the whole Zoso album, with Black Dog and When the Levee Breaks, and the whole.
Yeah.
But I like it all. I really do like it all. They're a little bit like the more modern day. Like I like U2. Also, and like U2 kind of reinvented itself a little bit with every album. Had a little bit of a different sound, a different feel, and Zeppelin's the same way. But I just think they were so far ahead of their time.
Yeah, and me personally, I went through a real transition of a lot of different groups. I mean, in a different way. I mean, obviously it's different kind of music. I really like Steely Dan.
Oh yeah, good stuff.
But a totally different type of genre.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, there was a time Beatles, Jethro Tull, David Bowie.
Sure.
We had a feast of a lot of stuff going on. Going through a period of about, let's just say, 15, 20 years. That was just crazy.
We've never had anything like it since, really. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't some talented bands, but back then, man, holy cow, like everything was great.
Right. We had all the rock and roll, and then we had all the stuff coming out of Motown.
Yep.
And there was just so much going on, and I just like, wow, man, and then all the Southern rock came out, Marshall Tucker, Leonard Skinner, Charlie Daniels, and all of that stuff was great, and it was just like, wow, man,
yes.
You could listen to the radio and just have a cornucopia of all kinds of stuff to go through your ears,
Yeah, all the Southern blues stuff, Stevie Ray Vaughan, all that stuff. And then I go all the way back. I love Johnny Cash.
Yeah, that was good stuff,
I was
too.
listening to Johnny Cash last weekend, and I'm like, I didn't listen to it back in the day. But, man, I love me some Johnny Cash. Life on the Chain Gang is fantastic.
Yeah,
folks, if you haven't listened to that lately, get your favorite home device to play you some Johnny Cash, Life on the Chain Gang. It's fantastic.
Yeah, man.
Lyrics.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. I hear that train a-coming. It's rolling down the track. Love that guy. Always wearing black, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know. Hello, my name is Johnny Cash.
Yeah, you're doing Folsom Prison Blues, which is fantastic.
That's right.
But Chain Gang, I love, like, you know, don't worry, Mama, they're teaching us a lot of good things in here.
Oh, man. All right. So what else we got?
All
we
right,
can talk
man.
about that.
We're going to go. I'm going to change this guy's name because I didn't use his last name, but he was very careful to say, don't use my name. So I'll call him Johnny from West Texas. And he writes in about Brown Mountain Lights. And he says, hey, guys, hello from West Texas. First, I want to say I love the show. It keeps me going while I'm out running around here in the oil fields. Your jokes and references to old TV and movies, I'm right there with you, whether it's Monty Python or the Munsters. And he says, I'm sending you this because I've never heard you mention the Brown Mountain Lights, which is right in your backyard, Kevin, in North Carolina. And he says, it reminds me of the Marfa Lights here in West Texas. It's surprising that an international man of mystery such as yourself has not talked about these. So he says the lore behind these lights goes back to Native Americans warning each other about them. This is just what I've heard. I hope you find more than I have. Thanks for the great show. My condolences to you, Bill. And by the way, I don't have any video evidence of the hairy man being here in West Texas. I didn't see him, but I have found tracks and handprints. And he says, I'll try not to let the black-eyed children use my phone or a witch turn me into a newt. And he writes, I got better.
And Kev, you know, I have to backtrack for a minute because while we've been talking here, I was trying to figure out kind of like what would my favorite Led Zeppelin song be. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I always loved the song The Battle of Evermore.
Oh, it's a good one.
And that wasn't one of them, you know, banging, drum pounding, hard guitar. That was Plant and Jim Page sitting on the stage with his acoustic guitar on like a stack of pillows.
Oh yeah, with like a mandolin too.
Yeah, just plucking away that haunting melody, you know. And, man, what a song that was, man.
Yeah, no, that was great. That was great.
You know, and of course, we all know they're heavy hitters, you know. Gallows Pole and, you know, all of these, you know, driving songs,
Black
you
Dog
know.
and
Black Dog, yeah.
Yeah.
Just, there was so many of them, but that Battle of Evermore.
No, that's a good example, Bill, of how they, like, you know, that's what I mean by changing their sound. You know, it's not even on the same album, on a similar album or same album, they'll go from one like hard driving and then into something like that. And I just love that. You know, it's fantastic.
Remember the Immigrant song?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it would just like knock you out of your chair just coming out of the gate, you know?
Yeah.
Anyways, so there you have it. Well, what else? Anything left?
That's it for tonight, Bill.
Wow, fantastic. Well, it was a good podcast. I feel like it was more of a conversation amongst old friends tonight.
That's good.
And I like that guy chiming in about the music and stuff. And I don't know, we were a little bit of this and a little bit of that. It was like a poo-poo platter in the Chinese restaurant.
Oh, poo-poo platter. Oh, you like it. Yeah. No, and I'm going to digress one more time. So I was talking about Led Zeppelin 1, and it's like, you know, I go up to Canada a lot. You know that, Bill, and some of our listeners know that by now. And they have a great rock station in Ottawa, Canada, old-fashioned rock station. You know, when I pick up the rental car up there, I turn it on, and I remember before the pandemic, 3 or 4 years ago. I get there, it's like 6 o'clock at night. I turn on my favorite rock station, and the DJ's like, "Put yourself here. It's 1969. Led Zeppelin 1. You just got it. You're 12 years old," or whatever he said. He's like, you tear the cellophane off, you pull out the album, you drop it on your turntable, and the needle hits it, and track 1 is Good Times, Bad Times. And he played it. And like that song, now that's a hard driving song, but when you listen to that, you're like, wow, that was 1969?
Yeah.
Their first album? Holy cow.
Yeah, incredible, right? Really incredible. Well,
yeah.
Fantastic show, Kev. Good research into the pterosaur. If anybody else out there has anything to add to the show, definitely contact us, okay? And remember, if you should find yourself berry picking on the shores of the Elk River, you better remember one thing, my friend. Always carry more gun than you think you're gonna need. Sleep tight.